the films, they don't remain on the outside, you know. We see them and they are a little like memories. They sneak into us. They become a part of us. Maybe the films we have seen, they are not like objects or something outside of us, but we see them and they become a part of us. We relate to them, we experience them. So it's maybe a little more complicated, the whole thing with the aesthetics and seeing films and what they do to us. And I thought maybe they are also a source of energy for us, or maybe art is also something which inspires us, which can maybe even be a form of self-care. We talked a bit in the conference about this term. Maybe it's also a little mixed up with neoliberalism sometimes, like self-care as opposed to a society which is responsible for people. Yet I thought there's a serious core to this term as well. So maybe let's start from that, because I also want to get to know you a little. Maybe we start with you, Brieuc. Would you talk about my idea of self-care and whether seeing a work of art or a film is something which for you is connected to self-care? Yeah. You can just push. Yeah.
Right. Talking about film, like I used to be a binge watcher before, like when I was a teenager.
A binge watcher, yeah.
Like I was over-consuming movies, and now I watch less and less movies. Like I go to cinema when I'm a little bit confused or lost or sad, and the space of cinema is kind of a ritualized space for me, and I like to go it like alone, I don't know. It's like watching a fire burning with people, and I really like the feeling that brings the cinema. And what can I say about that? But now, like when I go to cinema, I realize that I'm thinking about too much things while I'm watching the film. So like it's cool for me, but I'm losing the narrative sometimes. So like the first film, for example, tonight. It's great because it's like listening to a whole new age records, and you don't have to focus on the narrative. And yeah, that's what I can say about. So I don't know. Yeah, going to cinema is kind of recentering yourself. Sometimes I don't know. Like when you go out after a film, it's like more about yourself, I guess.
How do the others feel about what Brieuc has just said? Do you share his views? How is it for you to see a film? If not, you just have to push the button.
No,
yeah.
It's on. So it's difficult to start.
It's of course a super general question. Yeah.
Actually, we were talking before, as this, of course, it's. I agree with you when you say it's the solitary thing in the theater, but at the same time, it's a collective thing, because it's different to watch a film inside your house or to go to the theater and see it. So at the same time, I think it's that experience of being in an anonymous place, like anonymous people can be there. That experience is very particular, and we can't find it in our houses. So watching a film has also that collective dimension, even if it's like a solitude thing. So yes, that's maybe some point of what you said, but also another step on. I think it's another place. But when you were saying about watching the fire, it's very it makes sense.
So for you, it's also something which is rather giving you energy. You do it also sometimes on purpose, like you decide to see a film because it provides you with something, with warmth, or of course it depends on the film, but maybe yeah.
Yes, I think it's always some kind of reflection. It's not just letting go. It's at the same time you let yourself go, but it's always working inside. So you're different when you go out of the cinema. So it's not just letting go. It's something both ways, right?
So it continues after the film as well.
Yes, yes.
Caroline.
Yeah, I can totally relate to what happened with the first two films, and when you talk about self-care in a very personal way, I totally enjoy watching these contemplative or slow films. It's difficult to characterize them, but maybe we get to that. Really, for it has become a resort for to in the busy everyday life to go to a cinema where you can focus and you have a very crisp sound and you can really enjoy this aesthetic of sound and of, in this case, is also the materiality of the films, because I think most of them are shot on film, and then Brieuc's not. No, yours not. But yours is also mini DV. So there is also a special materiality, and this is definitely something I can enjoy most in the cinema. And it was a bit confirmed in the last years when, with the pandemic, we watched a lot at home, and we talked about it before. And even with the Beamer and OK Sound, the focus was not. It didn't work for me anymore. So I started to go more to the cinema again, even when people didn't go because they were afraid of the virus or something. So I really started going more into the cinema after that as a form of self-care. It totally works, this idea for me.
It's interesting that you talk about materiality so much, because I mean, looking at a wall is not as interesting. So what is it with the materiality which is in that moment meaningful for you? I'm just curious.
Maybe it's already a bit too far into or I don't know yet how to relate it to the topic of this evening, but aesthetics, yes, it's for me aesthetics has a value in itself, and this comes from, especially with film, from all the layers of all the means that films are working with, that is sound, that is image, that is the material they are shot on. And maybe that's a hint towards what I would also, what is interesting for me in the notion of aesthetics of care, or maybe even opposed to what Claire Denis said, that I think I tend to feel whether there's care behind the scenes, and how filmmakers are treating them, the materials, their subjects, their crews. Sometimes it all comes together in something that adds to the materiality, to the thickness of a film, to yes, and I can sense this better when there's a lot of focus, and sometimes the material of 16 millimeters, or even in this case maybe mini DV, adds to that, or irritates it also. The mini DV, to be honest, it's also irritating.
Maybe the other two want to comment on that. Your choices of using these materials, and whether it's related for you to what you show in the film. Why is it meaningful for you to use these materials to show something on? And we don't have to always connect everything to care. So I'm really curious because I want to understand.
Actually, in my other films, I shoot also in video, and when I can, it was in these two last films I shot in 16 millimeters. It's like something not just for the method, but from the aesthetics of how I and the team where I'm working, how we relate with that device, and also there's something in the cinematic experience, like you were saying, the material thing, that it's like a subjective thing that I can relate more and be more myself when I project the film like that. So of course after this nowadays that it's so difficult to shoot in 16 because also of the expenses. That's I'm reflecting on it and how to balance this aesthetic thing and how to continue working. So I think it's like it's something special when you have the possibility to do it in 16, but. Of course, the most important are what you want to say, the ideas, the reflections. So that, for me, it's always the main thing. That doesn't. It's not an obligation that something has to do with. It's not related, immediately related. You understand? So, that's.
By the way, can you hear us well? Are we loud enough? Yeah. You can join in anytime. There's an audience mic somewhere over there. So please wave, and Sophie will come to you with the mic. Yeah, sorry.
And talking about mini DV, it's more an economic choice than an aesthetic choice. Even if I like the texture that camera gives, but. The dispositive of the film is it's not particular, but like we shoot always with 2 cameras and we record a lot because there's a lot of improvisation and huge long times of setting the situation, so we can provoke like I don't like to say that, but like the truth of the situation, like when a discussion becomes real and when it becomes real. I don't know how to say differently. And mini DV is okay for that because like tapes are not so expensive. It's becoming more and more expensive, but at the time, like, it was not so much expensive, so we could like record again and again. And also, I like the lack of possibilities you have with mini DV. Like you cannot choose a lot of technical aspects, so it has its own properties, and so I don't have to ask myself too many questions because I'm not very good in technique, so I just have to frame with the 2 DOPs, so Raphael and Marie. We just have to frame and to know how to put where to put the camera, and then to capture the situation. But I think this will be the last time I will be using mini DV because it's too much fragile medium, and we lost like a day of shooting one day. So yeah, but as a film is very fragile medium. Yes, but I understand, like, sometimes it's very irritating and sometimes it's too darker, like, but I like it.
Just to add, from what you said of the improvisation. In this particular film, there's something in the beginning. It's in video. That's the collective thing where they are discussing their lives. So that was like 3 days of conversations, of like a catharsis. So that's where I was improvising with the people, and from that improvising I construct the narrative. So it was like a way of having some life on this script that was very more like sterile. So when I met these people, it was like a casting and doing like group encounters in a studio, and they like talking about their burnouts. So, and it was like it's I have a lot of material of that, but certainly it's just a pretext to find another thing that I'm going to doing fiction, because I wanted to do the fiction. But of course there's that old material that was more very like you said, it was like living with people talking about that things. But I wanted to construct with their lives the narrative. So that's the I know I had some I few bobbins to shoot, so I was like, I have this, but I'm going to construct before with these things I have, with these elements, with these people, and then I constructed. Of course, in the editing, it was all another step, but just to say that sometimes, and it's video there, it's like 10% it's video because it's the beginning of the film, and then it suddenly goes to another thing. That's why I was talking about the mixing of the. Sometimes I mix. Now I'm shooting just in video this time because of that, to be more free and so on the place.
Yeah, at the beginning.
It's very difficult, and yeah.
At the beginning of the film, I was asking myself, how do you get into the intimacy of the woman you are shooting with film, because you're like so under pressure of using a few meters of film that costs so much, and like you cannot leave time to get into the confessional.
I don't know. It's it's different methods, and each film requires some method and your relation with that. So how now I'm just shooting all in video for that reason, because it's very difficult to go too deeper, or for me, some people do it directly, but as I'm shy and I'm so that sometimes takes time until getting some place of relation. Yeah.
This relation aspect, I think, is really exciting for tonight's evening, because your films were made with groups, of course, like many films. And then when we see them, we are also in the cinema together, but at the same time we are in a way alone. Brieuc, you also mentioned that you like the sensation of being alone in cinema, and so let's maybe talk a little more about that feeling, why you enjoy it and what you draw from it. And maybe Caroline, you would like to comment on that, like how it was for you to be exposed to their films, and maybe to the whole evening. And to you two specifically, I'm very curious to ask what it is like when you see your own film, you know. I see like the magnetism already when you start talking. It's you're already there with your material, with the process, and the other films are also still there somehow. But it's also you have this intimate connection to your own films. And how does this work? Like, is there a hierarchy when you see these films together? Is it difficult for you to focus on the others? Yeah.
parts, no?
You go ahead. How did you see the two films of those over there, and how did you experience Steven?
The first thing is that talking about this experience and how we watch films, it's I was really a bit shocked again how really different it is. I watched all the films before in preparation of this evening, and especially with your film, Brieuc, I had some problems, and I don't want you to take it, that they were working until now. I was thinking again and again about it, and why I was so somehow a bit offended by the film, and also by its materiality. That's what I meant with it is irritating, because let's start with the material, maybe with mini DV. To say it very directly, at times I feel it's ugly. Then I think it's I ask, why did you choose it? And it's not that I prefer like high technology, whatever, but I had this feeling, and then also I love it because it's the 90s, and it's when I grew up and I started to take a camera in my own hands. So I was also constantly wondering, how old are you that you are choosing DV? And this also relates to the characters in your film, and that's where today, when I watched it on the beamer at home, I was quite offended, and I hated the guy, and I took it all very personal. And today I was, and there's a difference, because people are laughing. I saw more the comedy than the tragedy. I was less personally addressed, and I'm questioning myself whether or why I was so offended in the first place, and maybe there is something that really touches me, because also this guy that I hate is probably my age or a bit younger, I don't know, and it's a thing of generations. And then I also, the first time I saw it, there were so many cliches in it. The whole constellation of the characters, and things are, I mean, I really, when I watched it the first time, I could agree the Laurent's character is wonderful. And the others, I had problems with everyone. Because, and today I think maybe because some things are very obvious in their relations when you experience similar things. And so I was maybe really, it affected me very directly. And it was, yeah, in its materiality and in its character constellation. I was, yeah, I'm still a bit thinking about this, so I'm stumbling or stuttering a bit, but I'm trying to be honest with my experience from the first viewing and today.
I think this really is interesting, because now we are talking about concrete films and not any film anymore. So I'm also curious, like, is this something energizing for you when you are angry about a film? You walk out and then you feel better, and you what Leonor before described, right? You carry the film with you, and you said you are now puzzled about the film and wrestling with it and coming back to it. So there's a certain dialogue between you and the film, no? And this is something which gives you energy and you enjoy, or is this something you would rather say, I prefer the one I like in the first moment?
It is energizing when I can share it, and when I'm asked to discuss this. Yeah. Also, it's energizing a bit to be asked to discuss it here, and being a bit nervous about this, but then also being listened to, and maybe this makes sense. But when I'm alone, and that was the case in the first viewing, I'm a bit like, leave me alone with this, yeah, to be honest. But thinking about it or being asked to think about it by people in a certain that surround me or that watch the same film and have similar questions, that can certainly be energizing and interesting and open different perspectives.
When you mean obvious, you're meaning like except Laurence that you liked, the other characters are like cliché? This is what you're saying?
I'm not sure how to put it in words, but I felt I know these people, and I felt I knew that the guy would do some gabba moves in the end, and in the dancing or these dancing moves.
I call it tectonic in French.
Yes, sorry, I'm not really into that. I'm not too precise here. Sorry. But this kind of but maybe this is also because they are close. I don't know. That's what I'm wondering. Also, the two girls.
But I think like you're pointing something very interesting because Laurence is I think it's the only person who is really out of the game in terms of cast. Like she's the mother of my ex-girlfriend, and I spend a lot of time with her in vacation, and it's like an old teenager. She's not working for 20 years. She has a lot of tattoos, and she's dating someone different every week. Like, I really love this person, and she was I loved her when she was herself in the film. And what it rests from the editing is the moments where she was not playing, because when she was playing it was not okay, but when she was herself she was like very she had a spontaneity, like very fresh. And for the other people it's more or less people that are more conscious of their image and who comes from art school, were with me in my school, and the owner is Virgil Vernier, who is an independent filmmaker who knows how to, like, he's doing this kind of mid-documentary fiction film, and so it's really a role of composition, very written, who contains like all the things I wanted to critique about, like techno-managerial people, neo-rural, like so yeah, maybe it's cliché, maybe it's too much, there are too much intentions inside this character, and maybe it's too satiric, but
do you know that saying that somebody is a fire starter?
Sorry?
Somebody is a fire starter. Somebody wants to provoke a conflict. I'm curious about this character very much in your film, because he's there and somehow he's always intrusive and it's a bit too much. But he's also connected very much to the comedy of the film, maybe. I don't know.
And he's not doing comedy in his in his film, but like on the sets he liked to provoke situations of awkwardness. I don't know if you can say awkward.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And in comfort, and because he knew how to put like strange situation for the camera, so it was kind of a good strategy for me, because I like to withdraw, like to erase myself behind the camera and to let things go, and he knew how to like launch a debate or a provoke situation, and sometimes it was too much, and we had to cut like things that were too much. But I understand like the cliche thing, because it's a citizen guy from Paris, and he's doing films, and like he's not the guy he's playing in the film, but Laurence is playing herself. And when she was doing the film, and when she was doing this kind of woofing, she was really like discovering herself on the set. Like, it was, for her, the experience was real. She was not playing in a movie, she was like herself in a community. And my intention was that everyone was in this case, but it was not, because like my other friends, the three other people, were like more conscious of what's going on.
I just want to add that maybe I'm not talking about. I don't want you to or this to be understood a cliche in a. But maybe it's more what I consider or what I understand as obvious. That is, maybe it's even quite precise. Because it's getting to me very directly, and that's hard to take. That it's so in your face. And I mean, I have a house project in the countryside, and
maybe you relate it to Virgil. I don't know.
We are all women, and for quite some years it was very unhierarchical, and I can recommend being only among women. But also now we have some dynamics. Yes.
Being only amongst women is a very interesting connecting point to Leonor's film, by the way. Would you like to talk about that choice in that film, and also your choice not to have conflict in your film, which I find very interesting, and maybe you also disagree, but the sense of fighting within the film, or conflict, or direct relation between characters, which is in Brieuc's film so strong, is maybe very different in your film, no? Maybe.
Actually, that group was made, the group that I was rehearsing until get the conclusion. It was not just women, it had man and woman and between. And it was when I was hearing their stories, and also relating to my mother and mothers of friends of mine, that I realized I wanted to talk about how to be a woman of 50 years old. So, because there was something that related to my story and to other stories that are of my friends and person that are close to me. So when I was talking with this woman in the group and hearing their stories, suddenly they came upper than the man. So in the editing, the group, we just see the woman, but there was a bigger group. They were more than just woman. That's to answer your question. So and you were saying there's no conflict, right?
It's just a question. Maybe you disagree.
No, I think the conflict, it's inside their minds. It's like interior conflict. That's why it's so difficult when you're in a burnout to have like explicit conflict. And I was always, when I was seeing your film, I was thinking about it, because it's some point when you're in a burnout, you can't talk. Only after you have to be with people and gathering in a group, or it's like a salvation. So or after or in between. So it's like something that it's not so clear that you have a conflict, a direct conflict with another person. So I wanted in the film that's why the voiceover, it's then I have a voiceover, then the mother doesn't talk with the daughter, and the daughter no. So it's like an inner conflict. So I think that was the main thing I wanted to talk about, the interior conflict. But I didn't thought of, your film doesn't have a conflict, because for me it's so obvious that's a giant conflict. So it was surprising for me to hear that.
Any questions from your side, by the way? No? Yes? Take a moment to think.
But isn't it also about collective conflict or collective?
Yeah. That's the point, the beginning of the conflict. It's it's difficult to talk about this because it's like it has many layers, of course, and it's like a saturation of this society. So I think, and also about the things of you're talking about the women, also the jobs that these women have, that's like invisible job, and so also that I think there's also that conflict, like you have a society that expects that you are something, so and when you have some job like that, it's even more hard because you have to be quiet or not to, and then sometimes it explodes to other. So as I was saying, in that group, people were talking about it like they were stuck in their lives, and then suddenly when they were together in a collective, they could expel the energy. But at some time it's not solved because in the next day they have to work again and so on. And it's like a non-stop crisis. That's the reason in the film I put the protagonist running away. It's like a solution. It's a fiction, of course, but it's like the only solution she has. Like it's like a metamorphosis, like a death. It's like the only way she can go out of that saturation. So of course it's collective also, but that's the inner conflict also. The conflict between the outside and the inside.
Since you all have worked a lot on films and on set, I'm curious how important it is for you to establish structures of support for each other and those involved, which we could call structures of care, but maybe you choose a different word also. I'm just very curious how you do it, how you prepare for the process of shooting, how you support each other in the groups you work in. Yeah.
It's very different with each project because, sure. And that's maybe also a connection why I believe it's palpable. You can sense it in the final film because it defines where you can go, and that's what you said in the beginning, Leonor, how to, especially if you have to restrict yourself with the material, you need a lot of preparation, and if you're also shy or you need also a slow process to approach people, because the direct way or the faster one would be to would miss out on some details, some nuances, then you need to prepare for that, and it's difficult to generalize it. But I have one more question to Leonor, and I'm not sure if we already answered that. Are they are they actors or what kind of relation do they have to their roles? Because there's something you did this workshop, and
what did you think when you saw the film before Leonor answers?
Yeah, it begins with this workshop. I cannot say, because I also very often work with these situations in which people, non-actors or even actors who are performers from theater, they bring something of their own persona into the film. So that's kind of what I assume here, but it has a certain documentary notion, the film, definitely. Also in the later part when you observe them cleaning.
I wonder what it does to us when we see your film, right? Not knowing these details. I also don't know all the details of how you made your film.
Yes, and I'm not sure if you want to disclose them, but I'm interested.
It's like you said, it's a mix of course, it was, I was looking for a different person groups, like the groups that the gathering for. In Portuguese, it's autoajuda. It's help groups like and also I was doing in parallel a casting to understand if I could put. So it was like 3 parts of groups. Then I put them in a place, and before there were much more. Then I just put choose like 13, 14, and that's what I shoot. And some of them they are theater actors, other professions like social worker, teacher of children, and so on. So, but at the same time, when they were talking, it was not that what's important. It was like the lives and that they know that we were constructing for the film. So it's for them to see where they until they want to share, or maybe sometimes it's not so true. They maybe say something more like mix from their lives and not so. It was like that. And from that the film started to be fiction after that. It's all fiction after that. It's not true. No, true. No, that's a difficult word. Not that. You know what I mean.
And I did not want to interrupt that question because
it's still in the air, so no worries.
Yeah, how to prepare for certain modes of caring for each other and safe spaces probably for filming.
Maybe Brieuc also wants to answer. How did you prepare with your group? And how did you decide what you want to reveal to the audience about the backgrounds of your characters, of the people involved in your film?
It's a really deep question for me because like tonight I cannot say that I'm the most legit person to talk about care because I have to admit that and I'm learning from my my thoughts. I try to be like the most respectful of everyone on the set. Like before, like for the actors I'm talking. I spent a lot of time with them, interviewing them, and putting things in the script from them, like castings, and then they met on the set because they never met before. But because of a lack of fundings and of money, the set was very like intense. And sometimes when you ask people to play someone, like if you ask non-professional to play someone who is not the person, like kind of shifting their reality, and in the context of very hard set when we were like shooting with a working schedule that are not permitted except in this kind of shooting. I have to precise that I was not produced at the time. It was like a film we made with friends because I'm only working with friends and we try to make communities on the set, etc. It's very important for me. And so at the end of the set, I felt like it was a too much intense experience for some of the actors, and so yeah, I felt guilty of that because now, if I'm making new films, I will rethink about the dispositive, and I think like a role that is never on a set, but is very important. It's like someone who is just carrying the interprets to know how they feel, if they are ready to shoot, if it's okay to talk about things that are deep in themselves, because if you are dragged into the temporality of shooting and all the technical aspects and like there are so much to deal on a set, like sometimes you just lose the human contact with just how the person feels. And so yeah, I'm thinking a lot about that.
I'd like to follow up on something you said before, that making a film is something violent, a violent tool. And I'm curious whether Caroline and Leonor, you agree. How do you see that?
You mean the process of making a film?
The process of making a film, yes. As far as I understood it, that's what you meant, right? Making the film.
I wish it was not, and I can totally relate to what Brieuc just said, that you probably experienced it in a shorter period of time, that a couple of years back you filmed in a certain way, and 2 years later you already think, sorry, you don't want to do it like this again. And I feel that since I started to move around in this film scene or whatever and do this and that and in very different constellations 20 years ago, many things have changed really drastically. I'm super happy that we seem to agree that the idea of the genius needs to be abolished, and we don't want to we agree that it's not a proper method to have this character in your film be the one. This main character is a good example for that, like mansplaining and assuming he is the one who knows it all. Yeah, we've seen it. So
So when you saw Virgil Vernier perform in the film, you thought about film directors?
No, I'm making this metaphor just now.
Okay.
But maybe it's... No, I don't know. No, I think it has changed a lot, and but there's another thing that is really complicated at this moment. Is you learn these things that you don't want to work like this anymore because you or your team have been exhausted, and you understand there's some kind of inequality, and even if you as the director don't get a salary, you want to improve the situation for your team and for the film, and you want to install systems of caring. But you need money for that, and you need time for that, and that's it's. As soon as you start applying for money, you're making other compromises, and then if you're growing a bit older or more experienced in filmmaking, film producing, you understand you need even more money to be able to comply with working law, and to not work 16 hours a day but 12, and then maybe rather 10 or 8 if you really want to be comfortable. And then you have maybe made it the experience that with a film that you produced, or I produced very freely with not much money, and we just decided to pay everyone like maximum 3,000 euros for a month. Some people worked longer, some shorter, then they got like 1,500, and we had a very good time because we just shot or worked like 4 to 6 hours per day, because there was also a baby on board, and we were all around Kreuzberg just moving in the hood. This was very nice work, and I could have gone on for some time like this, because I can survive from that money from month to month. Where did I want to come back? But then you realize if you want to make a different film that you cannot produce like that, you need money to pay over hours. And then just a little film political comment. If in Germany, for example, you want that or in other countries, I think it's already installed that you can only get film funding if you comply with working rules and if you pay a certain minimum salary, which I totally support. But then you need to get those budgets, and I know of examples where people in Germany applied for these budgets and suddenly wanted to have a 3 million euros budget, and they were told, no, you with your artsy-fartsy films, you are not getting this kind of budget. I mean, I'm exaggerating. They were not told this like literally, but This was a little excursion on the complexity of care and sustainability in working in film.
You're a producer, so I'm curious whether you sometimes feel you need to care for the directors you work with. And you over there, I'm very curious how your relation is to your producers. Maybe you want to follow up on.
I agree on what you were saying about this new methods of shootings now, how new models, because it's I've been also 25 years working, and the things are different from then. And I just came from a shooting 1 week ago. It was very violent. Like it's if I can explain, that's not violent, but it's the sensation of that energy that you have to keep with the team, and that tension of being there. And I was with my small daughter, so it was like very difficult in that sense. And I reflected a lot about this thing of the caring. And also on what you're saying, how when you're a producer, I really, it's like it's a difficult question, because I have it's very difficult because it's how can I explain? So as I'm a producer and director, and this discussion helped me a lot on this thinking that it's the caring system. It's like when you, in the discussion yesterday was a bit about that. When you are caring, it's difficult to be cared. Right? When you're caring, so it's like something that you give yourself to something and don't expect anything in return. So you're doing there, you're there, and so on. So, and the films are very they require our emotions and our, not just the work, the concrete work, but also an emotional thing, because you're talking about emotional things. And and as a producer also we do that, like how to get a better film on this director or directors, or so when you're asking how do you do, it's like it's difficult. So it's I have also always to at the same time get closer to the films of others, and that requires a big energy. And also on the other side, sorry, I'm hearing. Sorry. So sorry, I have to.
Maybe Brieuc wants to take over for a moment. Would you like to talk a bit about your relationship to your producer and your dependency amongst each other?
I love my producers.
Both of your producers are here in a way.
Yes, I love my producer also. and one thing we were talking today, sorry, just to finish this, is that in the last years it's like that's maybe that's why there are so many burnouts in every profession. Not is it? It's like many information over everywhere. It's like not just internet, but fake news, many information that you have to deal daily. 100 emails per day, and so on. So you're like, how can I deal with this? So it's so difficult. We want to care. You want to answer to the emails. You have to. You want to be there, but you can't. without losing your mind. Yeah. So that's why going to the cinema, you just like offline. You go, okay, I'm here. So there's something that we have to, I think, be careful of this so much information and try to deal with this. There's something very strange happening. So that's just a comment because we were talking about it. It's like it's too much, but it's of course it's because we are many people. We want to help each other and so on. But sometimes you're stuck in it in that thing.
Yes, for me it's so nice to have producers now because before I was producing my films myself, so and I was working with friends, and so sometimes I could like ask too much services to my friends, but they were happy to do film with me. But now like there's a more framed way of doing, and Thomas and Julien are very caring of how the people are paid and how they are treated, and it's more like I don't think a director should be a producer at the same time. Like it's not because it's already too much to deal with, and you cannot like think about the money at the same time. I think, and but yeah, the more you get professional, I don't know what to say, but like having producers, for me it's like a new step in my young director life. But when I'm thinking about when I was at least like in high school, for example, when I was making film, you were not thinking about making food for the team, and then you just think about more and more aspect that people are not at your service to do the film, and it's like a whole thing to think and to. So yeah, I'm really happy to work with them, and so I can't wait to retry this kind of dispositif, but with a more framed set. Yeah.
Before we have a drink, I have a last question, which is, you already can, by the way, take the bottle if you like. So the films are in a way a violent structure. They are really also a lot of work. And I'm wondering, of course, why you go through all this, and whether you see the films you do and the work you do, or maybe art in general, as a structure of care within society, or if this is something which is really disconnected from what you think is what is your art in society for you? Why are you making it, and why don't you stop?
I sometimes also don't know why I'm doing this, to be honest, but this is always in the, of course, when you're exhausted, and it's probably with most professions. But today when I rewatched, there were also two other films, like Höfe's and can you help me with the name of
Eva Giolo's film was the
exactly.
other. Yeah.
When I watched that one again, I felt it has a lot to do with reflecting on seeing the beauty in productive processes, or purposeful processes, and understanding the purpose in non-productive processes. And so one of my interests, I think, that goes through many things that I do, is making people understand, or making visible the beauty, not the productiveness in a neoliberal sense, of course, but the importance of non-productive beauty, stuff like that. That's probably a broad motivator, and it always also has a political implication for me. Like, yeah, seeing the less loud nuances, giving them space. So it has to do something with care, yes, and to watching closely. It's not so much only about enjoying this and enjoying aesthetics, but really a deeper process, which is maybe something I experience when I close myself off in a cinema and focus on very slow non-narrative films, which is not the non plus ultra. I also love others, but that's a strong motivation.
The question was
why do you keep making films?
Good question. I love it. With all it's violent, of course, but I love it because of this. I think the main thing is to be close to others, to help others to get somewhere. Also, when I work with other directors, and there's some kind of tenderness of the humanity itself that is to be talked about. So as each person, it's a world. We can do a film from each person in the world, if hypothetically not. So that's why it's so interesting and sometimes so difficult, because we live in a conflict world also, so sometimes it's conflict to film. But I think that's the main thing of making films or working in cinema. Yeah.
And for me, like, making films is I think I will continue to make films because I like the collective aspect of the process of making a movie. That the movie is like the addition of all the people you are working with, and giving their ideas and giving their personality inside the movie. And at the end, like, the movie contains everything and all the ideas you had and the ideas like the other had. And I really like the collective aspect of that. And talking about this film. The shooting was a really intense but really interesting experience and a good memory. And like, the shootings interests me as much as the fiction. And then in the fiction, what I see when I see the film, it's like the portrait of 5 people I love really much. And that I wrote the script from them, and so I'm like happy that they are in the film, and that a film can contain the complexity of personalities and also aesthetic aspects, like my link to the area where it's shot, with all the onirical and Britain stuff, and like, so yeah, this is what I like in film, like, to put all this stuff in an object we can see in a cinema, like, together. Like.
Yeah, let's do that. We have a few days left, and we are going to a bar now if you want to join. Thank you all for sharing all of this with us, and for your films, of course.